What if I told you most paint peeling doesn't start with bad paint? It starts with a product many people don't even think about, the primer. When a wall primer is made correctly, it becomes the invisible foundation that helps paint stays on the wall for years. When it's made poorly, even expensive paint can fail. Today, I will show you exactly how professional manufacturer produce a working 20 liters primer from start to finish. And also, if you're just joining us today, make sure to watch the previous video, why paint fails. The link is going to be the first link in the description because this is a follow-up video series. In today's video, we will produce a professional wall primer step by step. You will learn why every chemical is used, what each chemical actually does, how factory mix primer correctly, how to avoid common production failure, and how quality control helps manufacturers build product customers trust. By the end of today's lesson, you will understand far more than a formula. You will understand why professional wall primer works, how to manufacture it consistently, and how to think like a factory instead of guessing. Because a formula can help you make one bucket, a system can help you build a business. Welcome to the Glina Paint Education. This channel is for paint manufacturers, entrepreneurs, contractors, paint dealers, and anyone who wants to build a professional paint manufacturing business. Here, we don't just teach paint mixing. We teach industrial paint production, factory thinking, paint production system, and business growth. Because paint manufacturing is more than mixing chemical. It is building product people trust. One of my students called me after producing his first batch of paint. He sounded disappointed. Coach Glina, he said, my paint looks beautiful in the bucket, but after a few weeks, my customer called me to complain that the paint was peeling. He thought he needed a better top coat. He thought he needed more titanium dioxide. He even considered changing his paint formula completely. But the real production failure happened before the top coat was even applied. There was no proper wall primer. That one mistake stepped affected everything that came after it. Professional manufacturers understand something many beginners don't. Every successful paint system starts with a strong foundation. Let's find the real problem. Imagine pouring water into a dry sponge. What happened? The sponge quickly absorbed the water. Now imagine your cement wall. It behaves almost the same way. Although the wall looks solid, it contains millions of tiny pores that act like small sponge. And when paint is applied directly into the surface, the wall pulls water out of the paint. The paint begins drying before it can properly bond. That weak bond eventually leads to peeling, flaking, and customer complaint. The problem isn't always the paint. The problem is often the surface underneath. That is what I call find the real problem. Professional manufacturers solve the cause, not just the symptom. A good primer seals the wall, reduce water absorption, strengthen the adoration, and create a stable surface for the top coat. Without it, even premium paint can struggle. With it, the entire coating system performs better. This is think like a factory. Every product has a purpose. Every chemical has a job. Every steps follow a system. Now that you understand why wall primer is so important, the next question is obvious. How do professional manufacturers actually produce a wall primer that perform consistently? What chemical do they use? Why does each chemical matters? And what production process create factory level consistencies? So let's step inside the making tank and build one together. Now that we have discovered why primer is the foundation of every successful paint system, let's build one together. This is a professional working 20 liters wall primer foundation that will help you produce a quality product when manufactured correctly. Remember, professional manufacturing isn't about memorizing chemicals. It is about understanding what every chemical does, because every chemical has a job, and when every chemical does its job, the entire coating system becomes strong. Professional 20 liters wall primer formula: clean water 11 liters, Calgon PT 40 gram, defoamer 30 gram, preservative 50 gram, nitrosol thickener 60 gram, titanium dioxide 0.5 kg, calcium carbonate 11 kg, caroline 1 kg, pure acrylic binder 2 kg, Texanol 50 gram. Let's begin with something that seems very simple: water. Many beginners think water is only used to make paint liquid, but that's only part of the story. Water is the working environment where every chemical meets, mix, and perform its job. Imagine cooking soup. You don't throw ingredients into an empty pot. You start with water. The same idea applies here. A clean, proper, measured water phase allows every chemical to disperse evenly throughout the primer. That is to say, water allows every chemical to grind, soften, and mix properly. This is our first factory insight. Professionals don't just add chemicals, they prepare the environment first. The next chemical is Calgon PT. Think of Calgon PT as a traffic controller. Without traffic control, cars become stuck. Everything slows down. Chemicals begin fighting each other. Calgon PT keeps the particles separated so they separate smoothly throughout the mixture. This helps improve mixing efficiency and create a more unique primer. Professional manufacturers understand that good paint starts long before the binder is added. It begins with proper dispersion. Now let's look at the functions of defoamer and preservative. As the mixing begins working, air naturally enters the mixture. Too much trapped air creates bubbles. Those bubbles can weaken the final finishes. That is why we add a defoamer. Its job is simple: breaking unwanted foam before it becomes a problem. Next comes the preservative. Think of it as security for your paint. Paint contains water, and whenever there are water in a paint, bacteria and fungi can grow if the production isn't protected. The preservative helps keep the primer stable during storage. Professional manufacturers prevent problem before customer even opens the bucket. Now, we add hydroacetyl cellulose. Don't worry, it is HEC and it is thickener. It could be your nitrosol, your milocell, or your Bamacol. But later on in the channel, I'm going to be explaining different types of thickener to save most paint manufacturers, and of course enlighten you on the best nitrosol to use. So now, this is one of the most important chemical in water-based coating. Think about making pap. If you use very little corn flour, the mixture stays watery. As you add more, it becomes thick. HEC works in a similar way. It controls viscosity. In simple words, it controls how thick or how thin the primer becomes. A primer that is too thin may run down the wall. Too thick, and it becomes difficult to apply once it's thick. Professional manufacturing is about finding balance, not too thin, not too thick, just the right system. Now, let's add titanium dioxide. Many people believe titanium dioxide is only for making paint white. No, it actually does much more. Think of sunlight shining on a white shirt. The shirt reflects most of the light. That is why it appears bright. Titanium dioxide works the same way. Titanium dioxide works the same way. It reflects light very efficiently. This improves brightness, opacity, and hidden power in primer. We don't need as much titanium as in premium emulsion paint or matte paint or most of these water-based paints that we use titanium dioxide to produce, but we still add enough to improve appearances and coverage. Every chemical has a purpose. So far, we have built the liquid foundation of our primer, but primer isn't only made from liquid. The real body, strength, and structure come from the mineral chemical we are about to add next. And once you understand why professional manufacturers use calcium carbonate and caroline plus other fillers together, you will never look at primer the same way again. These bags may look ordinary, but they give primer its body. Let's begin with calcium carbonate. Think about building a concrete blocks. Without sand, the block has no strength. Calcium carbonate plays a similar role inside primer. It gives the coating body, it helps fill small surfaces imperfection, it provides sanding, and it makes the primer easier to apply evenly. This is another factory insight. Professional manufacturers don't use fillers because they are cheap. They use them because they perform specific jobs. A good primer isn't made by adding more chemical. It is made by balancing every chemicals rightfully. Now we add caroline. If calcium carbonate gives the primer strength, caroline improves refreshment. Imagine baking a cake. Flour provide the structure, but the quality of the flour affects how smooth the cake becomes. Caroline helps improves application. It creates a smooth finishing. It improves standing and it helps the primer spread more evenly across the wall. Professional manufacturers don't rely on one filler. They combine different minerals because each contributes something unique, and that is factory thinking. Now we reach the heart of the formulation, the acrylic binder. This is the chemical that holds everything together. Imagine building a brick wall or a house. Brick alone cannot stand. They need cement. In primer, the binder is the cement. It surrounds every pigment and filler particle. As the water evaporates, the binder particles moves closely together. Eventually, they join to form one continuous flame. That flame is what sticks the primer to the wall. Without enough binder, the coating becomes weak. Too much binder and production cost increases unnecessarily. Professional manufacturers don't guess. They balance performances and cost because the strongest product isn't always the most expensive. The next chemical is Texanol. You see, Texanol works quietly behind the scene. Imagine trying to join puzzle pieces together. If they stiff, they don't fit well. Texanol gives the binder particles more time and flexibility to join properly. That helps create a strong, smooth paint flame. It improves adhesion, it improves durability, and it helps the primer dry into one continuous protective layer. Small chemicals, big responsibility. And also, Texanol has other functionality it does to different types of paints. That is water-based paint and even most time oil-based paint. Is understanding how to use it rightfully in any given paint production system you want to produce. Now let's put everything together using the correct factory production method. Start by adding clean water to the mixing tank or your mixing container. Add your carbon PT and mix properly. Introduce the deformer and preservative. Yes, most of you are not used to this type of production process, but you can actually produce in this way, or after your carbon PT, you add your fillers and mix immediately, then introduce your acrylic and then add your deformer. But I want to also give you this easy and advanced production process that you can try as well. So after introducing the deformer and preservative, you slowly dissolve your nitrosol with little water and then you add into the production process. The reason is because you want the paint to start its viscosity early and gather all the chemicals right fully. So now if you're going to be using a mixer, which is machine, then you can add your nitrosol directly. You get, but most of the times a lot of people don't know how to mix nitrosol, this which is the thickener, the powder form in paint manufacturing production process. So that is why it's advisable to use little water to dissolve it, even if you're using your machine. Then after that, you add your titanium dioxide. Then gradually, after adding your titanium dioxide, please, you have to keep mixing. Then gradually you introduce the calcium carbonate, followed by the caroline, while maintaining continuously mixing order. Once the mineral, which are the fillers, are fully dispensed, that you fully mixed properly, you add your acrylic binder. You stir, then follow with the Texanol. Continue mixing until the primer becomes smooth, uniform, and fresh and free from lumps. Professional manufacturing is not about rushing. Every stage prepare the next process. Every chemical depends on the previous. That's why production orders matters. Now, the troubleshooting and quality control, which most paint manufacturer usually avoid this process, or rather they don't even observe this process. You see, before any professional manufacturer fill a bucket, their product is tested. Ask yourself for simple question. Is the primer smooth? Does it spread evenly? Does it bond firmly to the wall? Does it remain stable after storage? If the primer feels too thin, which is a little, maybe let's say watery, review your thickener level and mixing procedure. If the foam is excessively, check your deformer, add little or mixing speed. And aside that, once you see excessive foams in production process, it is usually not the acrylic. Most of the times it is because you did not wash your mixing tank, or you didn't, maybe you just finished producing and you're using the bucket or the mixing tank or your mixing drum to produce right away without washing. Try this out. Whenever you finish producing or you want to make a fresh production, always wash your mixing tank or whatever drum you want to use to produce. When you get to the acrylic stage, you might end up seeing that you don't even have bubbles or foam during your production process. If it settles quickly, inspect dispension and mixing team. Professional manufacturer don't wait for customers to discover problem. They discover them first. That is the differences between mixing paint and building product people trust. Now that we have completed the manufacturing process, let's sit back and see how this professional system creates strong product, happy customer, and a better paint manufacturing business. Now, our wall primer has been produced. It has been mixed correctly. It has been tested. But none of this matter until it reaches the wall, because customers never buy your production process. They experience the final result. Let's compare. Wall number one, receive paint directly on the bare cement. Wall number two, receive one coat of our professional manufactured wall primer before the top coat. Both walls use the same paint, the same roller, the same painter, the same weather. Weeks later, the differences becomes obvious. The prime wall looks smoother, the paint covers better, less paint is needed, the finish lasts longer, and the customer feels the differences. This is why professional paint manufacturers don't sell bucket. They build complete coating system that builds better paint. Let's leave the factory for a moment and think about your business. Customers don't know how much titanium dioxide you use. They don't know your binder percentage. They don't know your production order. What they remember is whether your paint lasted. Every successful bucket becomes your next advertisement. When your customer trusts your quality, they recommend you. And when they recommend you, your brand grows. That is why quality isn't just chemistry. Quality is marketing, quality is branding, quality is customers retention, consistency creates trust, trust creates profit. This is factory thinking. Today's lesson wasn't really about war primer. It was about learning to think differently. Beginners ask, what chemical should I add? Professional paint manufacturer asks, what system produce consistency result? That single question changes everything. It changes your manufacturing process, it changes your quality, it changes your reputation, and eventually it changes your business. Here at Glina Paint Education, we teach every product using three simple ideas. First, the real problem. You never guess. Always understand the cost. Second, think like a factory. Every chemical has a purpose. Every purpose has a reason. Third, build better paint. Good paint isn't created by luck. It is created by understanding chemistry, controlling manufacturing process, quality control, and factory thinking. Today's lesson gives you a professional working wall primer formulation. You can use it to produce a quality product, but remember, a formulation alone doesn't build a successful paint manufacturing business. Understanding the complete production system does. If you would like to go further, I've created the professional wall primer guide. Inside, you will get advanced factory production method, premium and economic wall primer system, raw material substitution, cost optimization, quality control procedures, factory troubleshooting, production scaling, packaging recommendation, professional manufacturer adjustment for more consistent performances. The formulation you have learned today is a strong professional foundation. The guide helps you master the complete factory production system rightfully. So, for those of us that want to purchase the ebook, go to the link in description to get yours. And if you enjoy learning through a real factory demonstration process, you can join our YouTube channel membership. Inside the Glina Manufacturing Lab, you will watch practical formulation improvement, laboratory testing process, production comprehensive process, and manufacturing demonstration that go beyond our public lesson. And if your goal is bigger than producing one product, if your dream is to build a profitable paint manufacturing business, then the PMB course is your next step. Inside, you will learn advanced factory formulation, production system, quality control, branding, costing, marketing, sales strategy, and how to grow from small batch production to factory level manufacturing. Because production is only the beginning. Professionals don't build business with formulation alone. Today, we have built a professional wall primer, but here is something many manufacturers don't realize. A good primer can still fail if it's produced incorrectly. The next video answer one important question. Why does wall primer fail? Even when you follow the formula, we will uncover the 5 most common production mistakes. You will learn why primers separate, why it becomes 2 or 3, why adhesion becomes weak, why storage stability fails, and how professional paint manufacturer prevent every one of those problems. Because formula don't fail, system do, and that's exactly what we will solve next. Remember, paint manufacturing is more than mixing chemical. It is understanding problem, designing system, building products people trust, and creating a business that continues to grow. Stop guessing, build system rightfully, think like a factory. I am Coach Glina. Thank you for learning with Glina Paint Education. I'll see you in the next video.